on the Newman Jets Audio Network. This is the Jetcast, the official podcast of Newman University Athletics, featuring exclusive interviews with coaches, players, administrators, and more. The Jetcast podcast is brought to you by South Central Sealing and Paving, online at SCSEALING.com. Mel Hambledon Ford, Pepsi, Allstate Insurance Agent Mike Light, Eck Agency, Donlinger Construction, Big Corner Creative, Dr. Brennan Lucas and Advanced Orthopedic Associates, Keystone Solid Surfaces, and by Overland Charters, the official transportation provider of Newman University Athletics. Here's the voice of the Newman Jets, Blake Cripps.
The Newman Jets softball team returns home final weekend of the year. This weekend, Friday and Saturday. The Fort Hays State Tigers visit this weekend. Nebraska Kearney is in town on Saturday. With that, we welcome you into episode 44 of the Jetcast. Talking Newman softball to start things off with the head coach, Andrea Gustafson. Thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Always great to have you on. Last time out, close game in game one against Washburn. Ichabod's ended up taking both games of the series. What were your thoughts on the Washburn series a couple of weeks ago?
You take away one bad inning where we give up 5 runs in the first game, and we ended up losing 5-4. I thought we competed well, but once again, it was just that one inning, that did us in.
Yeah, do you feel like that's been a big difference? And how, if you eliminate those bad innings this year, and I'm not saying that you have to have this number right off the top of your head, but I have to imagine if you eliminate one bad inning in each game, your win-loss record is totally different. How do you go about in the offseason and next year trying to maximize your innings when you're hitting well and obviously minimizing the innings when your opponents do well?
I think it's a mindset change. Right now we just kind of have a losing mindset. We go out there and we play not to lose instead of play to win. So that's kind of what we need to focus on, is the mental aspect of the game.
So a weekend off this past week, which, well, I don't know if I've ever seen that, where you just have a weekend off with no games scheduled. How did that happen, and what was it like? Did you know what to do with a weekend off in April, May, or March? That's not something that's a luxury for a softball coach.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just the way the MIAA schedule worked out for us. So we had the weekend off, and I gave the girls a couple days off, so hopefully we're rejuvenated and ready to go out and play this last weekend.
How do you kind of reset mentally, and how do you hope the girls reset mentally from this little delay and break that they had?
I think that we can beat every team that we play against. It's just a matter of going out and doing the little things every single game, and we have yet to do that very often. But once again, just come out this weekend. If we play our game the way that we're capable of, we can come out and get some wins.
Emma Eck is going to join us next on this episode 44, and then we're going to wrap up the show with women's soccer and talking with the first-year head coach, Coach Holmes, coming up here in a few minutes. I already talked with Emma Eck, so people who watch this or listen to this know sometimes we record these out of order and then we place them in a new order for you as you're watching or listening from them. She's delightful to talk to. Obviously, catcher hitting .371 for you this year, top 10 in the MIAA in batting average. What has she meant to this team? And obviously going to be pretty tough to see her go here in a few weeks.
Yeah, she's been a great leader for us. The season definitely hasn't gone how she wanted it to, but she told me that she's made it a point to try and lead the underclassmen and try and get them going in the right direction. And I can't say enough good things about Emma. She's come around and just been a tremendous leader for us.
And she mentioned that of the seniors who are going to graduate and leave, there was only one other one, and it was her best buddy, Paige. So instead of asking about the entire senior class, and you can talk about them kind of as a tandem if you want to, but we did want to mention Paige Wallace, and had her on the podcast earlier, the Jetcast earlier this year, and she's had some really good offensive numbers, and they've both been kind of real battlers at the plate for you with the bat. What are your thoughts on having to say goodbye to her as well?
Well, they're both 4-year kids, 4-year starters. I think they're best friends. They've been great leaders for this team, and I'm so grateful for them and everything they've done and trying to help us get to the place that we're trying to get to. And they both have expressed interest in trying to, follow us as they move along, as we move along. And like I said, they're good for the younger kids, and hopefully the younger kids are watching and noticing. Senior
Day festivities, you've got 4 games coming up. 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. If people want to make it out, which game are you going to be doing the senior day stuff at this weekend?
It's going to be on Saturday.
Okay.
Before the game. We play at 12 o'clock.
So 12 o'clock, so senior day in between, after the games, or before the first game?
Before the first game.
Okay. Well, what time do you think?
Oh,
Let's say 11:30. Get there at 11:30, and if it's a little early, just sit down. I mean, they'll have popcorn or something there. They'll have a pop for you at the concession stand. So have a candy bar and wait. It'll be a great day. The weather as of today, it looks pretty good for the weekend, but obviously that can always change. I wanted to ask you about a freshman, Madison DeWitt, a pitcher that you had. Last 2 outings for her didn't go well, but before that, she actually had 3 straight quality starts for you, going at least 6 innings, giving up 2 earned runs or less. Obviously, as an underclassman pitcher, it's probably pretty natural and normal to have ups and downs and kind of a roller coaster ride. What was she doing well in that streak of quality starts that she had that maybe gives you some optimism that she's going to continue to improve and figure things out?
I think as a young pitcher, sometimes you let the surroundings get to you a little bit, and sometimes early on in the season, our defense wasn't making plays, we weren't hitting, and so she's thinking too much and trying to do too much. When she's been successful, it's because she just goes out there and pitches. And it doesn't worry about those things. She just focuses on her job, relaxes, has fun, and that's when she's been most successful.
So Fort Hays State University is coming in, and you look at them, they're really a polar opposite kind of team. Not a good offensive team at all. I think they're second worst in the conference in batting average. However, you look on the other side of the ledger, Michael Ann Nelson, Haley Chapman. I think Nelson is 3rd in ERA as a pitcher. Chapman is in the top 10, so you've got 2 top 10 MIAA pitchers in ERA coming in. What do you know about them, and what kind of a challenge are they going to provide your hitters this weekend?
They're going to work to keep us off balance and keep us guessing and stuff like that. Once again, it's going to come down to our players. We've talked a lot about mental approach and what you're looking for as a hitter, the situation, knowing what your best pitch is, and just having a good approach when you go up to the plate. And hopefully we can put that to use this weekend.
Nebraska Kearney will be the last series of the year, and that's what senior day will be on that Saturday. They have allowed the second most home runs in the MIAA. Now, you're not necessarily a big home run hitting team. However, you do have a big home run hitter on your team with Taylor Olery, who's tied for 4th in home runs in the MIAA. So while you're not a power team, she is certainly a powered player. What's made her so successful in hitting the long ball this year?
I think she approaches the way she approaches the hitting. She looks for her pitch. She doesn't swing at too many pitches out of the zone. She kind of knows what kind of hitter she is, and I think she's a better hitter when she goes middle to the right side of the field. So when she lets the ball travel deeper into the zone, and she goes with it a little bit, and she's done a good job of with pitch selection and getting her pitch.
You've mentioned the fact that the girls, to have success this last series, needs to change their mindset and get into a winning mindset. Not that they're, down on their dauber or being negative, but, trying to make a play to win the game instead of, worrying about a play that's going to lose them the game. As you move forward and try to build this program up, you've had so much success at the junior college level, so what it takes to build a winning program. How do you and how did you in the past instill that mindset in your players to go out looking to make a play, and how did that translate into success for you at your previous stops? How do you bring that forward to Newman for next year?
I think it's a matter of getting the kids in here with that mindset. We do have some kids here who want to do it. I don't think that they necessarily know how to go about it, though. They do want to win. They want to compete. But when you've been kind of around a culture of losing, you have to change that mindset. And so that's what we're working on. You just have to have kids who are tough-nosed, hard-nosed kids and aren't afraid to fail and just go out there and give it everything they have.
In baseball, the off-season is pretty well defined. If you were a college baseball player, your coach typically will try to get you into a summer collegiate wood bat league program. You go out, if you're a pitcher like maybe Colin was, you've got a program, maybe you've got a pitch count. If you're a hitter, obviously you just want to get at bats, want to get reps in the field. What's that look like for a college softball player in the summer? Are there leagues like that for college softball? And if there aren't, what do you try to do instead for college softball players players to try to help them work on their skills and develop during the off season in the summer?
Some of these kids are still young enough to play with their summer programs, so they can do that. There's also some women leagues. Some of our Canadians, or we have a couple of them, and you can play up in Canada for ages.
Okay.
You can be an old lady still playing up there, so they can play up there. But if you're too old down here, you have to take the initiative to go out there and work on your game. And a lot of teams will, the summer programs will let the kids come back and work out with them and stuff, whether they can play in games or not. But they'll let them come back and use their facilities and work out there. So the kids just have to take the initiative to go out there and do that.
Final question for you. You mentioned the recruiting aspect. This season obviously is much more different than maybe any other season. You had kids that this year were allowed to come back without losing a year of eligibility, and a lot of the kids that you have returning will still have that leftover eligibility from a year ago. How difficult is it going to be for you to try to fill in what you need based on the fact that you've got more players eligible than maybe you were expecting, and trying to piece all that together with all the NCAA rules, and obviously making sure that you bring in the kind of mindset that you mentioned that you feel like you need in order to compete with the MIAA? How's that process going, and where do you see it going through the next months as you get set for the 2022 softball season coming up?
Yeah, I think at the end of the year we're going to meet with all the kids and kind of see where they're at academically and where they're thinking, they are softball playing wise, but I'm still looking around and looking at our field and our needs, and I'm not letting that hinder, the way I'm recruiting. I'm still going out there and recruiting the positions that we need and, the spots that we need more help in. So COVID hasn't really hurt in that way, but I just kind of don't know where the returners are at, eligibility-wise exactly. I need to have that conversation with them.
Andrea Gustafson, Newman softball, once again, last games of the regular season coming up this weekend. Fort Hays State on Friday, Nebraska Kearney Saturday, and once again, Senior Day festivities before that noon first pitch on Saturday. Show up. It'll be sometime around 11:30 that we'll get things started for Senior Day on Saturday. They'd love to have you out there for the last Diamond Sports home matches of the season. Andrea Gustafson, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The talented Emma Eck out of Bishop Carroll and Goddard High School joins us next, the top 10 hitter in the MIAA. She'll join us next on the Jetcast.
Hi friends, Phil Nightingale, General Manager at Mount Hamilton Ford. Have you been thinking about a new SUV? Right now is a great time to buy a new Ford at the big corner of 119th and West Kellogg. EcoSport, Escape, Edge, Explorer, Expedition. Mount Hamilton Ford is sure to have the right vehicle to fit your size. And you can count on us with this great selection to find the right SUV at the best price to fit your budget. Check us out online or in person. Let us make your purchase easy with pickup and delivery right from your home or work. Mount Hamilton Ford, experience the difference.
Jetcast back on the air here, talking Newman Jets softball, and we are joined now by a senior leader on the softball team, catcher from Goddard, Kansas, and a former Bishop Carroll Golden Eagle, currently hitting .371 on the season. Emma Eck joins me here on the Jetcast. Emma, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, you guys in softball, and I didn't look back, but at least since I've been here, I don't think I can ever remember the softball team just having a week off. I know that there's always the chance of weather, and we know that, with baseball, softball, the schedule's really just a suggestion, and you guys figure it out as you go. But what was it like to have a weekend off?
Honestly, kind of nice.
Yeah?
I got some of the college experience back.
Sure.
Catch up on homework.
Yeah, I bet that college experience has been a little different, and that's kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you about. Do you feel kind of a sense of accomplishment that, you're a senior, you're about to, move into the real world, I guess, but you've had a lot of adversity that you've kind of had to go through these last two seasons. Almost half of your career has been kind of in a quagmire. is there a sense of accomplishment that you've gotten through this, or maybe just a sense of relief that maybe things are finally getting back to what you're used to?
Maybe a little bit of both. You definitely meet a lot of lifelong friends.
Sure.
So like getting to go through that with my now family has been awesome. But
do you feel like that does that bring? They say sometimes that if you go through something like that, it can bring you closer together. Has it done that for you and some of your Jet friends?
oh yeah, like Paige Wallace, she'll be there forever. Can't get rid of me.
Yeah. So we're talking with Emma Eck. By the way, I mentioned she's hitting .371, ninth in the MIAA in batting average, and she's hit safely in 5 of her last 6. I know the Washburn series didn't go quite as well as you wanted it to go, but I mean, you've over the last 2-3 weeks, you've been hitting the ball really well. What do you attribute your success in this late half of the season? And you've really been, you looked up and down the stats. You've been pretty consistent this year. What's allowed you to maintain that high level throughout the season?
I don't really know. Kind of just like before you get in the box, you just clear your mind and you say, okay, I can only do one job at a time, so I'm going to get my job done.
One thing that people on YouTube might see, and I don't know because the camera, I don't know exactly where the camera cuts us off at, but if you're watching on YouTube, you might see a little wrap on Emma's knee here. What's that for, and how are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. So when I dive, I kind of dive straight on my knee every
Sure.
single time. So I think what my trainer said is I have a little fat pack or
Yeah.
fat pad that's gotten irritated, so it's swelling up quite a bit.
And obviously, when you're diving, most of the time you're doing it with equipment on. Does that help or hurt things?
So it's not always with equipment. Like shortstop, I dive, and then
Sure.
when I'm on bases too.
Fair enough. Emma Eck joining me out of Goddard. You've done a lot of the catching. Not that you don't play other positions, but you do a lot of the catching. Mm-hmm. This year, you've had a very, very young pitching staff. I think you have the 4 players that you have pitching. 3 are freshmen, and 1 is a sophomore. As the senior in the battery, how do you try to mentor those young pitchers and keep them in line when things are going well and try to reel them back in maybe when things don't go as they want to at a start?
Right. So we have like a really young team in general. So our team goal has kind of been to think about things and like, okay, so what's our thought process through this? What kind of pitch do I need to throw in this situation? And you kind of, what we've been doing is you call a lot of timeouts, let them breathe a little bit, get used to the situation, kind of calm their nerves.
Do you call the pitches behind the plate, or do those calls come to the dugout? What's that relationship like between you and the head coach? Because I know that different coaches like to do things very different ways. Coach Ealing, I don't think Coach Ealing ever let the catchers call when he was the baseball coach. Coach Mouse does let his catchers call the game. What does that work like with you and Coach Gustafson as you try to decide what's the best pitch to throw in each situation?
Right. So Coach Shockley is the one that calls the pitches, and so she'll relay them to me. But in between innings, we kind of talk about what's working, what's not working, where the batters are standing in the box, kind of stuff like that.
You are from Goddard, obviously played at Bishop Carroll for a very, very high-level program. What's it been like for you to play your entire softball career, prep, and now collegiate right here in Wichita, Kansas?
It's been exciting. I kind of grew up, and I always thought that I wanted to leave Wichita and get away just to have that experience.
Sure.
But staying close to home has really been nice, because then I can always go to my mom and have her do my laundry.
Yeah.
Or come home for dinner.
You want to be far enough away where it's inconvenient for them to come and visit you, but close enough where it's convenient to go home.
Yes.
I don't know if Goddard's in the sweet spot or not, but I imagine with the pandemic, which obviously not something that you ever plan on, I bet that was nice to have them close by when things were looking a little bit scary there for a second.
Mm-hmm. I actually, when the pandemic started, I went back to live with my mom for a little bit, for like a 2-week period, so it was really nice just to get to drive there.
Final series coming up for you. Obviously, you've got this is the last week of the season for Newman, Friday and Saturday. Come on out. Should be looking, I think, as of today, decent weather. I mean, that could change tomorrow, so don't listen to me. But they are supposed to play Friday and Saturday, 2 doubleheaders each day. I believe 2:00 first pitch on Friday and then noon on Saturday, so you can come out and see the softballers. What are your thoughts going into your final series, perhaps, of your softball collegiate career?
It's definitely going to be a bittersweet. Obviously, I get to play the sport I love, but having it come to the end is a little terrifying.
Sure.
I have to grow up and get into the real world.
What's the scariest part about that? Is it, just the fact that you are going to be growing up and you're going to have to become an adult and start thinking about some of these other problems that other adults, or is it losing something that's just kind of always been a part of you? I mean, when did you start playing softball?
Probably when I was like 8 years old.
So this will be the first time in, 20 years that you have not been, 15 years that you haven't been playing competitive softball. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think is the scariest part of losing this sport you love so much?
So usually when I get frustrated or I have a bad day or anything, softball's always been there. So I can just go to the garage, go hit some balls, do something. And now I'm kind of losing that, so
Sure.
I think I'm going to have to find another hobby.
Well, I will warn you, there are a lot of slow pitch teams who are always looking for girls, and I know that they would love to have you. So maybe that would be an option. I know it's not going to be exactly the same, but I've played with a lot of former collegiate players. They typically do pretty well.
All right.
So that maybe that's an option for you.
Yeah, I can keep that on the list.
What are your future plans? You're going to be graduating here very, very quickly. Have you kind of figured things out with what you want to take? What's next steps you want to take in your life, and what's in the future for Emma Eck?
So I'm graduating with an elementary education major, and I've started to apply to a couple jobs, but I haven't really heard anything back yet, so cross your fingers for me.
Absolutely. If you're seeing this, we can get you in touch with her if you need to hire. So what exactly in the elementary education process, what do you feel like your part of that process will be?
What do you mean?
It's like, so do you want to be in administration? Do you want to be a teacher?
Yes, so I'm going to start out teaching, and then maybe if the future holds it, I can become an administrator sometime.
Okay. What exactly? I don't know how they do that. When I was in school, we just had one teacher and that was it. Now I'm told that they have teachers for different subjects in elementary school, which blows my mind. So do you specialize in a certain subject or maybe a couple subjects, or have you kind of gone about it the old school comprehensive way where you can just go in and teach anything?
Yeah, I think there are ways you can do that, but I'm the old school way, so
Good.
I'll just teach all of them.
We like the old school way. You mentioned a little bit this senior class for softball, how close you've got to them. What's it going to mean to you to step out onto the softball diamond with them for the last time? And I know that you guys are going to have some senior day festivities in this last series. I know that'll be a little bit emotional for you guys, but what do you have to say to your fellow senior teammates on this team and in this program as you guys have tried to rebuild with a new coach and try to set the Jet softball program on the right track for the future? And I know it hasn't always been easy, but what will you say to those players and those lifelong friends that you've made?
So the only seniors that are graduating now are me and Paige, and being here for the last 4 years with her has been amazing. And the only thing I'd say is we definitely worked the hardest that we could, and we did everything we possibly could just to lay it all on the line.
Final question for you. You've got a couple of pretty good teams coming in. Fort Hays State has been a really, really, really tough pitching team. And then you got Nebraska Kearney coming in on Saturday. What's it going to take to come out on top with these two series? You guys have proven they beat a top 25 Central Oklahoma team, split that series with them. So you guys know you have the capability of beating anybody. How do you reconjure that success you had against the Broncos and bring it into these last two series and bring home some wins to end the year?
I think over these past couple days, we just really need to focus on staying within ourselves. And if we come out with the right mentality, we can beat anybody.
Emma Eck, she is top 10 batting average in the MIAA. Once again, those series on Friday and Saturday to wrap up the Newman Jets softball season right here at the NU softball field at the Diamond Complex. Come out and see them here this weekend. Good luck. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
We'll be joined by women's soccer coach Jay Holmes when we come back on the Jetcast. Wrapping up our penultimate Jetcast of the season with women's soccer. They finished the year 3-6-2. If you recall, this was not an official MIAA season, so Jay Holmes, I guess technically, will still be the first-year head coach, kinda, sorta, next year. I know that these games, Coach, I don't want to call them meaningless because I feel that you felt they were very important to try to build up your program, try to bring things together for your team. First of all, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for having me. But, you know, how did you approach this season? Because I know that, you know, in terms of you trying to figure out college soccer and, you know, moving up from the high school level, you've found it to be very helpful to get to know the college game and your players. So in looking at it through that lens, how do you feel like this first year has gone, at least calendar year, even if it wasn't a traditional season?
Yeah, I'm super grateful that I had an opportunity to get to know these kids and start developing trust and relationships with them, both on the field and off, especially last fall. The spring, you know, it really created an opportunity for me to develop team chemistry and identify, you know, those players that are going to play certain positions and how effective they were in their roles.
3-6-2 after a 2-0 win against Nebraska Kearney to end the year. Your thought on the record, if this was a traditional season and you had a 3-6-2 record, what would be your thoughts on this team? Not that the record is the most important thing this year. You've made that very clear that you're not judging this year or this period of time, this period of games by the record. But what did you think about the team that you did put out there that went 3-6-2?
You know, I think that we lost some very tough, close games.
A lot of close games.
So we lost, you know, Emporia State was ranked 6th in the country. We lost 1-0 to them, lost 1-0 to UCO. We lost 1-0 to UCM, who was ranked 16th in the country when we played them a few weeks ago. So from a competitive standpoint, you know, I thought we were competitive in those games. But I'd be kidding you if I didn't tell you I was disappointed in not being able to be clinical in the offensive third that could have resulted in a few more wins than losses.
Well, you mentioned the offense. We talked offense last time you were on. You got the 2-0 win over the Lopers the last time out. So obviously the offense clicked a little bit for you in that game. What worked for you offensively against the Lopers?
Well, I just think having Jolene McLean back, you know, she hadn't played since her first game of the season. You know, she's just an offensive threat for us that we hadn't had up until the last couple of games. And, you know, she showed us what she could do and had the game-winning goal against Rogers State. And they were able to obviously watch a little bit of film on her for the UNK game and kind of took her out of the mix, but created other opportunities for other kids, specifically Ashley Talley.
Well, and obviously, I mean, you mentioned all of those close games that you had. It's obvious that you are building this program on defense. You only gave up multiple goals twice in 11 games, which is incredible. What made your defense so effective? And do you feel like that's the foundation that you're going to build this program on, is the excellent defense you played this year?
Absolutely. And I think it was led by Kara Butler and Jackie behind her in the pipes, in between the pipes. Just they did a great job in regards to our communication and making sure that there weren't loose runners in the box, and did a great job even on the offensive side of things to help generate our attack out of the back.
You've mentioned several times with the offense that you feel like they've done a good job in certain thirds, but maybe not in that last third closest to the goal you're trying to get the ball into. Shut out in 6 games. You mentioned that you did not have all of the offensive weapons that you would have liked to have had the whole year. What adjustments do you feel the team needs to make, maybe that you need to make, to try to get more balls in the back of the net to make some of those zeros on the board to ones? And with the defense that you've played, one might be enough in a lot of these games.
Yeah, I think we won our 2 out of 3, our last 2 out of 3 games to end the season on a positive note, and think that we've done some things in training and some adjustments that we've made throughout the course, especially the last 4 games, to create more opportunities in the offensive third. Certainly, I think if we're able to get on the front foot and score goals early, that bodes well for us, because we've proven that we can defend. And that's something, that we can really hang our hats on at the end of the day.
What's been this feeling out period like for you as you try to get to know the girls? The girls have tried to get to know you. I obviously not the biggest soccer expert in the world, so I couldn't tell you how similar your system was to the coach before you, the coach before him. Obviously, Coach Avila had a lot of success here at Newman, and you're trying to continue build on that and even grow upon that. But how did that go, and how much more do you feel like you know about your team than you did when you started this whole process?
We tried 3 different formations. So to start out the year, we played a 4-4-2, and then we ended in a 4-3-3, and then we tried a couple of other modifications to formations, and we ended up being really a solid 4-3-3 team. And we played that formation the last 4 or 5 games, and really had some good chemistry with kids in those positions and those roles.
What is it about that formation that you like?
I like the fact that it's more offensive oriented. As opposed to more defensive oriented with some of the other formations that we had played in. And it allows us to get 6-7 players involved in the attack while still having 3 or 4 in the back that's able to kind of manage any type of counterattack threat.
Obviously, normally this is when the offseason would be, kind of getting, you're going into summer at this point, and so maybe the activity level is a little bit less. Maybe that this spring ball would be a little bit different in a normal year. Coming off of this spring season, going into what we hope and what we presume is going to be maybe even a fully normal season next year. I guess we don't know. We'll find out as we move along through the summer. What does this offseason look like coming off of this late spring season and then going into what hopefully will be your first full regular season, starting up with training camp probably in August, and then games maybe by the end of August, but by Labor Day probably going to be rolling again? Yeah,
we had some conversation about that at team dinner yesterday at my house, and discussed how important it is for them to continue strength and conditioning. With Coach Hayden Jones is going to have some voluntary workouts over the summer.
Very nice.
That I want those that are going to be in town to actively be involved in. For those that are not in town, obviously we have a conditioning program that we're going to send out to the team that they'll begin work at in June. So we have those 2 things in place, and plus there's opportunities for kids to play here in Wichita with FC Wichita.
Sure.
They have a women's program that's kind of tailored towards college-age students that they can continue to try. Hopefully, if they try out and make the team, they can participate in over the summer to help refine their skills.
Now, one thing I saw on the website, I forgot to write it down, but I remembered I wanted to ask about it. You're doing some sort of a program with friends here pretty soon, or maybe it just happened, but a college ID camp. What was that? If you already had it, how did that go? And what did you want to get out of that college ID camp, which is not necessarily for your players, but more for players out in the community?
We just wanted to provide, well, actually, it was more than just kids in this community. There were kids that came from Oklahoma and Missouri that came
from the region.
From the region that came to the ID camp that we reached out to, club coaches that both Coach Hobson at Friends and I were familiar with, and extended invitations for them to attend the ID camp. Coach Hobson and I thought it was important to have our own ID camp here with the only 2 4-year schools that have women's soccer. And, there are some junior colleges around, certainly Butler and Hutch, but we wanted it to be focused and tailored for 4-year student athletes. And it was a success. Our first year we had over 30 kids.
Okay.
Student athlete, high